Hello, everyone. I'm here with my friend Matthew Diaz, who is, I believe, in Berrien Springs, Michigan at this time. And
Yep.
I know he's very happy to be there in such a beautiful place. I will not say any more about Berrien Springs. I don't want to get too angry at this time. But either way, Matthew, you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure thing. So I'm 27. From the state of Texas. I'm a proud Texan. I'm a Cowboy fan, as will soon be elaborated on soon in the future, probably. I'm a family person. I love my family. I love my parents. I love my siblings. I have a beautiful wife. We've just been married for a year and a few months. Um, and I'm enjoying life. I'm also a Christian man as well and a student at the moment. And I love sports. I love outdoors. I love philosophy. I love thinking. And I love friends as well. So there's a lot to say, but that's basically the gist I could say in short.
So sorry to all of you single ladies watching this. He is married. No chance there. Um, Ironically, well, not ironically, I guess it's a good thing. It's a happy ending because the girl that you're with now, Selena, this is the same girl that you were dating way back when we first met in like 2012.
2012, yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that. How does it feel to be with someone for that long? Like, because I mean, for most people, like you date for a while and a long relationship is, I don't know, like 3-4 years, but you guys were dating a long time and then you got married and now you're married. How has it been to be with the one girl? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, man, that's actually a question that I get often when I talk about this.
Yeah.
And I would say it's cool. It's pretty cool because uh me and Selena basically knew each other, or like we both know each other for half of our life, I'd say. We didn't just have the experience to date, but we've seen each other grow from young kids in high school to 27-year-olds now who have a different perspective on life, a different perspective on family, on things or whatever. So it's been cool to see the transformation, and it's just been nice to have a common thread
Hmm.
throughout my life as well, and it's just been a blessing.
Yeah. And it's funny you talk about transformation because I was just thinking, like, as you say that, I can look back and I can remember when we were in high school, because you were, I think we were both seniors or you were like a freshman in college when we first met. And I remember you came, it was like your girlfriend Selena and then your sister Stacy. And like me and all the other guys were like, who are these attractive girls? And then of course there's this other guy, no one cares about this guy. Who are these attractive girls? And you were like real mad because all of the guys are like checking out your sister and your girlfriend and like ignoring you. And you were just there like, what is wrong with all of you? Oh, you
Yeah,
want to
man.
get that?
Oh, let's pause here. I don't know who it is.
It's okay, yeah.
It's my landlord for some reason.
Okay. You should probably get that.
Okay, let me pause it really quick.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's fine. No worries, no worries.
A few moments later.
So when you look back at who you were then, what are some of the things that are still the same? Because I know it's easy to talk about how much people change and all of that, but like when you look back to who you were, like you said, when you first met Selena, when we first met, how much of what you see is still the same?
Um, I would say my humor. Um,
Okay.
that's a big one. It
Okay.
hasn't really changed. I've always been a joker. I've always liked just having a good time, laughing, and that's been a consistent theme in my life, and I'm very thankful for that. Um, I've always been family oriented. That hasn't changed. It's actually just intensified since then.
Hmm.
I really value family. Sports has been part of my culture since I was a little kid, um, and that's been the same as well. Uh, but yeah, so I would say there's like fundamental things that really haven't changed. My humor, my perspective on family, the importance of sports, and just my desire to play sports. But there's also been a lot of changes too, just the way I think and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But yeah, those are basically the things I could think of off the top of my head. At
Yeah.
least.
So I know that when we had talked about doing this, we had talked about wanting to talk about sports. And I know that sports is something that we both connected over pretty
Sure.
quickly because we both liked playing sports and we both liked being physically active and doing stuff like that. I
Mm-hmm.
still remember when I was a freshman in college, I had never ever gone to the gym to like lift weights with anybody. And like
Mm-hmm.
we had just met a couple months prior and you were like, dude, I'll take you, I'll show you how. And like, I remember that was a lot of fun because I had never gone before and you were like showing me the ropes. And I also remember like we would go to the gym at what was called UTPA at the time. And we would go
Yeah.
and we would play and there'd be people who would be like getting real mad and like getting real serious. And like we were always just goofing around and having a good time. So I appreciated that a lot. But I know for you, sports, like you said, is something that you're very passionate about and it's something that's been part of your life for a long time. So
Mm-hmm.
what are some of the things that got you into it? Like what are some of your early memories about like being physically active and sports and stuff like that?
The earliest, or I guess I'll break it down as in like what's influenced me and what's
Mm-hmm.
the earliest things that I could think of. I'd say a big one is just my dad. Since I was little, my dad has been a Cowboy fan. He's been a basketball fan, and just part of my culture has been since I was a kid, going to my grandma's, being there with my cousins. We all sat in the back. I had like 20 plus cousins, guy cousins. We're just there in the back. There was a little TV, like the big fat TVs back then.
Yeah.
And we'd be watching sports. And I remember a lot of times we didn't know what the heck was going on, but that was the culture, sports. And we all got together. We had a barbecue, and it just built this love. And just so when I think of sports, it's not just playing, but it's like a community. It brings back an experience and a memory of my family and what I did growing up. And the earliest memories I could think of is being in my grandma's yard and playing football with my cousins, and we're playing tackle. And I wasn't aware of how to tackle, so I would trip people and I'd push people. We start fighting. Even I know this isn't considered like a real sport, but we would do like a WWE type of experience on the trampoline. I'm sure you've experienced stuff like that with friends. Yeah, we would clothesline each other. We would get on the tree and jump off thinking we're doing these moves and land. And these are all sport experience that I had growing up. And even capture the flag, which isn't a sport, it's a game, but for us, we saw it as a sport. We competed like a sport. And then I would say even playing a flag football, that's probably the first sport I played when I was a little kid. I remember I was part of the Jaguars. And
So you still, was that Boys and Girls Club? Do you still remember?
Yeah. I think as a kid, I didn't even realize that the Jaguars was a real team. But
Okay.
so that was my first exposure to them. And the best memory I could think of is I played running back, and we only had like 3 plays I could think of, and we just ran them over and over again. And it was the reverse. So the quarterback would fake the hand, or he would hand off to one person, but then as that person got the ball, I'd be over here and we'd run by each other and he'd toss it to me. I still remember like clear as day. That play always worked. And this one time I wasn't the first person to hand off. I was the person who would finally get it at the end and hopefully score the touchdown. And I remember the ball being handed to me and seeing the whole defense switch to the other side of the field and my side open. And I remember running. I hear my mom, "Go Matthew, go Matthew." And I still remember my shoe flew off.
Oh no.
Both my shoes ended up flying off. It just off my feet, and I was running and my socks got green and I scored. And yeah, that's one of my earliest memories. And yeah, it brings me a lot of joy knowing that it was just a good experience.
No, that's cool, dude. I know for me, I think ironically my most memorable experience from like the Boys and Girls Club when I was a kid is not when I was playing, but when my brother was playing. So I was still really young, and my parents were like a little hesitant to let me play because obviously I wanted to play with the people in my class. I didn't want to play with people the same age as me because then it would be people I didn't know. But then that meant I was going to be smaller than all of them. So my parents were like, why don't we wait until he's a little bit older? So like, at least he's not that small. He's always going to be smaller than everyone else, but at least he won't be like even smaller. So that particular season, it was only my brother who was playing. And my brother was really good on the Boys and Girls Club teams. He was always like one of the taller kids and one of the ones who would score more. And my mom, it was like a close game. and everyone was real into it. And you know how those arenas are not like super big, or like when you sit on the front row, you're really close to the court. So my mom was sitting on the front row, and I was sitting on her lap. And my mom sees my brother coming down, and he like, I don't remember exactly what he did, but he made a basket. And everyone like, yeah, they cheer, they stand up because it's a close game, and it's like a last minute scenario. So everyone's excited in our section, and my mom stands up, just cheers, yeah, and she forgets I'm sitting in her lap. So I got launched onto the court. My mom launched me onto the court, and like everyone was like, "Oh yeah, oh no," because like someone just threw their son onto the floor, and I was like, "How did I get over here?" And my mom was like very embarrassed.
That's crazy, man.
It was super funny, but like I know my mom was like super embarrassed because she never wanted to be one of those moms who was like super into sports. And then like the moment she became one, she like threw her child onto the basketball court. So she felt really bad.
Yeah, man, I think there's something about a parent seeing their kid score or do a defensive play. It just brings that beast out of them, if you will.
So what other sports did your parents put you in? Because I know you mentioned the Jaguars. Like, did you do any other sports like soccer or baseball or basketball or anything?
I never played soccer or baseball. I did try baseball in high school for like a week.
Okay.
And that was the end of it. I was more of a football guy and a basketball guy. But I would say primarily I was a basketball guy. I played that consistently throughout my life.
Okay.
And my parents also put me in a basketball league, and it was a Baptist church. The one for anyone who's watching this that's not aware of our town, one of the main street is called Texas, and Jerome.
It's very creatively named, because we live in Texas, so they have
exactly.
A street. Yeah.
So there's a big Baptist church. I'm pretty sure you've seen a Jerome where there's also the gym next to it.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, there they had a Christian league, and I played there as long as I could until I got too old and they pushed me out of the way. But yeah, man, I played there, and I have a lot of great memories there too. Just funny experiences.
Okay. Tell us one then. What are you thinking of when you say that? Because I see you smiling. I know you're thinking of something. Tell us one.
Okay, well, I'll tell you two.
Okay.
That was, like my first experience there. I was part of this team, and we didn't have a name. We were just the green team. So that's how it started.
Did the other teams have names?
No, I think that's how it was for like the younger kids. It was like the red team, the green team.
Okay. I thought it was like you were the green team, and then the other team was like, we're the Lakers. Like, okay, well, we're the green team. Like,
no, it was just bad. But anyway, we had a bad team. Like, we didn't win, and it wasn't even funny. It's just we just weren't good. And I remember that was my first season playing with them, and I was the best player on my team. And it was.
Is that because you were really good, or is it because your team was really bad?
I think my team was really bad, and I was the best out of the bad. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
So like I wasn't a stud or anything. I got better in time as I got older, but at the time I was just regular kid, just playing for fun. But the funny thing about this one story is, or it's not necessarily a funny thing, but it's a memory I have that I'm proud of to this day. It was kind of like a Derek Fisher moment. It was like 2 seconds. It wasn't 0.4 seconds, but it was 2 seconds left, 2 or 3, I forgot. And we were losing by 1 point. And I remember my coach is there on the sideline. We're all young kids. Like, you can't really drop a play.
Yeah, like, what does he say? So you're going to come off the screen, and then, like, what is he going to say?
I just remember him. He looked at me. I still remember, and he said, "We're giving you the ball." And I remember as a kid, I was like now I think about it, that's a huge compliment just for the coach to say, "We're giving you the ball." But as a kid, I was terrified. And I'm just like we suck and we've lost every game, and now it's on me. So he makes a play, and it's basically the inbound just right there on the top of the 3, and I was supposed to catch it and drive down toward the free throw line or on the side of the free throw line and just shoot. Well, surprisingly, that exactly happened. The defense didn't put pressure. I remember I catch it, I dribble 1, 2, 3 dribbles. There's a double team on me, hand in my face. I pull up, shoot, swoosh.
Dude, that's cool.
How buzzer beater. I was like 7. 7 years old, and yeah, it was intense for a 7-year-old. So I remember jumping and jumping and jumping and cheering with my friends, and that was our first win. And it's one of the sweetest to this day because it was a struggle, and that's one of the few times in my life where I had like immense pressure. At least for that moment, it felt like a lot of pressure, and it just felt awesome.
Oh, dude, that's cool. Did you actually did you watch the Derek Fisher moment live? Did you see that?
I did, and I was so disappointed.
How did you feel? You were disappointed?
I was. Growing up, I was a Spurs fan. As I said earlier, I'm from a sports home, so my mom actually was a Bulls fan. Jordan, the Bulls, all that. And after he retired, they just got into the Spurs, obviously because we're from Texas. And I remember that season, the Spurs. I think it was 2004, if I remember correctly, but could have been another year. But the Spurs won a championship already. I think that was the Western Conference Finals between the Lakers and the Spurs. And watching that game, and I don't know if you remember the play that just happened before that. To me, that was my favorite play when Tim Duncan, with Shaq in his face, does a fadeaway on the free throw line and makes it swish.
Ginobili will inbound to Duncan. He gets doubled. Shaq all over him. He gets away, a fadeaway. He makes it with 4:10 left. Unbelievable.
Yeah, because for me, the thing about that story is I imagine that our feelings about that moment are just inverted.
Exactly.
Because as someone who grew up cheering for the Lakers, for those of you who don't know, I was born out in the Pacific Ocean. My parents were missionaries, so growing up in the Pacific, we only got to watch West Coast basketball games. So I had to cheer for the Los Angeles Lakers, the Sacramento Kings, or the Portland Trail Blazers. And I chose the Lakers, and I grew up as a Lakers fan. So moving to Texas when the Lakers and the Spurs were always clashing made things interesting for me to come to school and to be happy about the Lakers and everyone else was upset. But I remember that exact moment because I was convinced that the game was over, and I was so angry at Tim Duncan. I was so angry at Tim Duncan because I hated him. I hated him with so much passion because he would never react. His face would never change. He would just be there like, I have eliminated you from the playoffs. And no, nothing. And he was like a robot, and I hated him. And then here, the one time he shows any emotion or any break in his composure, because he fell down.
He fell down, yeah.
And he still drains it. And I was like, there's no way with what it was 0.4 seconds.
Yeah,
I was
0.4.
There's no way that anyone is going to be able to score in that time.
No, yeah, man. I remember when that play happened, I remember my mom and dad were all slapping hands. We're all happy because Tim Duncan won us the game. And then that bogus shot.
Here they go. They get it to Fisher. He scores! Derek Fisher scores at the buzzer. It'll have to be reviewed. They'll review it. The Lakers are going to run to the dressing room, and they'll try to get on the plane before the officials can get over to the scorer's table.
That Derek Fisher comes up with next.
What do you mean bogus?
I could assure you, if that play was done 10 more times, he would probably miss it all the rest. It wouldn't go in. It was just like the way Skip Bayless says, the basketball gods were on his side.
I was going to say, you know who you sound like? You sound like Skip Bayless trying to take credit away from Kawhi Leonard for Kawhi Leonard's game-winning shot. He's like, it's the luckiest shot in the history of the NBA. And he's so mad. That's who you sound like. I'm just letting you know.
That shot was 1,000% luck. That was simply the luckiest shot that ever fell to win a playoff game. Ever, ever, ever. In all my years, going back to covering the Lakers here in the middle 1970s, I've never seen a luckier shot that won a playoff game.
Yeah, man. Well, it is what it is, but it did sting, but it did feel better when the Lakers lost in the championship that year. So it was all right.
Okay, let's talk about something else. No, I mean, in all seriousness, if you look back on that time, who is it that you wanted to be? Because, I mean, usually, people identified with someone from their favorite team. And I thought you were going to have, a football player that you would identify with. But you're saying basketball was the main thing, even from a young age. So who was the basketball player that you imagined yourself to be when you were, playing in the driveway or playing with your friends?
Yeah, man. I think it's gonna be the same answer a lot of guys who grew up in the same time as us would say, and it was Allen Iverson, AI,
Yeah, yeah.
the answer.
So
Yeah, man, he
talk
was my
about AI
guy.
because I feel like there are some people who like the NBA a lot and they look at people like Steph Curry or they look at like Dame Lillard and they look at like these little guys who are like they just take over the game and like they don't understand what it really means to be a little guy and take over the
Sure.
game.
I think with Allen Iverson, the thing that made him just awesome to me, at least, and for a lot of us, is um, he wasn't built, he wasn't fit, he wasn't the cliche basketball player. He just looked like a small guy on the court. He looked different with his cornrows, tattoos, the arm sleeve, which he's the one who actually made that popular. But he was tough, man. He would drive to the paint. He would shoot in your face. He wouldn't back down. And he was the type of player that when he put his foot on the gas, he put his foot on the gas. And if I remember correctly, Kobe Bryant, I believe, had a quote where he said, "We should all thank God that Allen Iverson was not 6'6", because you could only imagine if he was mauling people at 6 foot flat. You could only imagine the type of force he would have been if he was as big as them. Yeah, he was a monster.
The other thing I think that made AI so crazy was that he came up around, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he came up more or less around the time that the and one culture was also
Oh
taking
yeah,
off.
yeah.
So he kind of like they kind of hyped each other in a sense because and one would do these crazy things and they had their style of both playing basketball and just the way they carried themselves. And Allen Iverson was one of the few, if not the only people in the NBA who really had that same kind of swagger. But he didn't just have the swagger. Like he had the swagger and then he swaggered his way to winning the MVP. And like he would destroy people by himself. And you're right, he wasn't like the stereotypical basketball player. He didn't fit in the mold. He was so different and it was still really good. I think another player that a lot of people look in that time imagined themselves to be, and this is one that I think a lot of people now these days might have forgotten, is T-Mac. A lot of
Yes.
people
My second player.
yeah, I was
That
gonna
my
say
second player.
when you were saying you were gonna be someone, I was thinking you were gonna say T-Mac, and a lot of people forget how crazy Tracy McGrady was too.
He was a monster. He was a monster. And I had 2 jerseys. I was a Spurs fan. All my friends knew that. All my family knew that. But I wouldn't wear Tim Duncan to school. I wouldn't wear a Tony Parker jersey to school or Ginobili. I'd wear Allen Iverson and Tracy McGrady. That's what I wore because like those are the cool guys. I wasn't a Laker fan. I was not going to give Kobe any credit. I could care less about Kobe. People were Kobe. But for me, it's like I'm anti-Kobe. I'm a Spurs fan. But Tracy McGrady and Allen Iverson, man, they were just 2 beasts. Glad they're in the Hall of Fame. They are well deserving of that. But Tracy McGrady, if you want to talk about an individual who just he didn't get a break, man. He got injuries after injuries, and yeah, to reference Kobe Bryant again, Kobe himself said that one of the worst matchups he had to go up against was Tracy McGrady.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was a big fan of him.
And I think
And I remember that Houston game with the Spurs. I don't know if you
was it
remember
like
that
13 points in 11 seconds or something like that?
Yeah, that it was just I saw that game too, and oh my goodness, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, because you start off very happy because I mean a 13-point lead. Like
Yeah.
usually if you have a 13-point lead with a minute left, you're feeling pretty good. But a 13-point lead with that little time, and then the happiness just slowly
exactly.
and you start realizing like we're actually going to lose this game. That's crazy.
Yeah, man. He's a great player. And what about you? Did you have a player that you wanted to be like?
Well, obviously, as a Lakers fan, it had to be
Kobe.
Kobe. It had to be Kobe. I mean, I think that it was like for me, I got more into the NBA. Unfortunately, it was like as the Lakers kind of like faded away for a couple of years, so I felt bad. But like I remember the years with like Chris Mim and Smush Parker and Kwame. I remember Stephen A. Smith, like when the first time he said it live, like Kwame Brown is a bona fide scrub. He can't play.
This man was a bona fide scrub. He can't play.
Like I remember actually watching that and being like, because I mean, I was a young kid, right? So like I don't know anything about anything. But I remember I would watch the games and I would be like, it never goes in when he shoots it. Why is that? Shouldn't it? It has to go in at least once, right? And it just seemed as if every time this man got the ball, something bad would happen. So I feel very bad for Kobe Bryant because I'd be like, man, like he's trying, he's scoring 81 points, he's going insane, and it wasn't panning out. I remember the one, like I think one of the most vivid memories I have of watching Kobe from a young age was that game against the Suns when Smush Parker, there's like the inbound possession right at the very end, and Smush Parker steals it, which was, first of all, like if you go back and you watch that play, the fact that Smush Parker stole the ball there at all is ridiculous. So he steals it from Nash somehow, gets it to Kobe, Kobe lays it in. And then I remember sitting through the whole overtime and thinking like, how can it still be this close? Like we're going to the end of overtime and it's still a really close game. And then I remember there's a jump ball. It was Luke Walton and Steve Nash. And I was like, if Luke Walton loses a jump ball to Steve Nash, I'm going to be so mad. And it's funny because if you go back and you rewatch the game, or rewatch that last possession at least, you see Luke Walton wins the jump and the ball goes to Kobe. And the other four players literally just run. Like they don't have any plan of like, okay, so I'm going to set a pick for Kobe and then I'm going to trail into the corner, or no, they all just run to like get out of the way. And then Kobe just goes. And there was something about that I thought was so awesome because like I said, I was always younger than all my classmates. So it was very rare for me to be like the hero in anything athletic because I was so much smaller than everybody. Sure. So for me, seeing someone not only be the hero, but be the hero to that extent where like twice in one game, his whole team is like, just get out of the way and just let him do it for us. And sure enough, he goes and he drains the shot and you have Mike Breed, the famous call of bang in the background.
Currently with the height advantage here on this tip. Now with 6.1 remaining. The Lakers, no timeouts here now. A 1-point game. Walton can tip it. Bryant with the save. Oh, you got to get a shot here. Final seconds. Bryant for the win. Bang!
And I remember just being there, being so like happy and imagine that.
That's my guy.
I was like, how cool would it be to be that guy? And then of course they freaking blew a 3-1 lead. So that. So I mean, Steve Nash and the Suns were really good, but I hated this. Like I like Steve Nash, but I always hated the Suns, like Raja Bell and like Amari Stoudemire.
And then Amari Stoudemire. Yeah.
But like Raja Bell was the one guy, and it was very awkward because that's like my dad's name. So like my dad and I'd be watching the game, and then Raja Bell comes and like and clotheslines Kobe Bryant, and my dad is just there like, I'm not like that. I don't do that. I was like, okay.
Yeah, man, and you know, like the Suns were good, but I think at the end of the day, like the rival of that day was the Spurs and the Lakers. Like that's where it was at. Yeah. You could throw in the Pistons, you could throw in the Suns, but there was that consistent rivalry between the Lakers and the Spurs. And yeah, I don't know. Like, what do you think of that?
I think personally, if you go back between the year 2000 and the year 2010, if you have to pick a team to assign, like this was their decade, it's the Lakers. I don't think there's
from 2000 to 2010.
You cannot. I don't think you can make it. And you're welcome to try, but I'm just informing you in advance. It's not going to work. If you have to pick a team and say whose dynasty reigned supreme in those 10 years. It has to be the Lakers. The Lakers won 5. Everyone else won 5 combined. All the other teams in the NBA combined won 5 titles in those 10 years. The Lakers also won. So, like, how do you can't.
I would say if we start from 1999 to 2010, that's a better argument for me.
You want to start with the lockout season?
I'm going to start with the lockout season when MJ retired and the Spurs held up their first chip. That's where I'm starting. Okay. And I would say in that season, I guess I'll put it like this. I know Kobe and Shaq were the best duo. Like, that's not debatable. That's clearly they were better than Duncan, Ginobili, and Parker in those early 2000s, I would say. Even though it's 2 versus 3, I think they were just unstoppable. And if you want to say if Kobe and Shaq would have stayed together, they were the best. Like, they would have been the best team. I would say, yeah, they're you're absolutely right. But because they split, and because there was that time period where they were just out of the picture, and the Spurs stayed in the picture from 2000 to 2010, they've always stayed in the picture. They were consistent. Mr. Reliable was the foundation for them. You can make the argument that the Lakers were more flashy. They were more cool. They probably brought in more bucks. Yeah, you could make in all those arguments, but I would still choose the Spurs because they kept a level of consistency. And when the Lakers died out because Shaq left, the Spurs didn't. And I think if that's a good argument for them.
I think I see your point, but I think one thing that really is a pity is that the Lakers and the Spurs were never like, they always had to meet in the conference finals, you know?
Sure.
Like, because, and I mean, I'm not trying to do any disservice to like the Pistons or to the Magic, or who did the Spurs play?
Or the Boston, the Cavs.
There's like the Cavs. Like, I'm not trying to do any disservice because like young LeBron was very talented, of course. And then the Pistons, that Pistons team was stacked. And then, of course, you have in the late
Jason
2000s.
Kidd with the Nets, I think.
That was, the early, like, 2000s.
2000s.
Although, to be fair, the Lakers smashed the Nets.
But
the question becomes, like, who, like, if would the Spurs have been able to beat, like, who in the Eastern Conference would have been able to beat the Spurs? Like, I feel like consistently, because, of course, now there's all the jokes about how weak the Eastern Conference is and all of that. And people talk about that. And now that's, like that's not a debate. Like, that's just a fact. The Eastern Conference is, for the most part, weaker than the Western Conference.
Yeah.
But back in the day, it wasn't quite as bad as it is now. But I do actually think that if you put the Spurs in the Eastern Conference, or I guess it can be the Lakers too. It doesn't really
vice
make a
versa.
difference.
Uh-huh.
But it makes you wonder, like, how many times would the finals have been Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili versus Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal? Like, that would have happened, I feel like, a lot more than any other finals matchup, just because the Spurs, like you said, the Spurs were so consistent. And of course, like, if Shaq leaves Kobe, then we have to have another conversation. But like, if you just take the Kobe and Shaq Lakers and the big three of the Spurs, if those two teams stay together and they stay in different conferences, I feel like they would have been meeting in the finals a lot.
No, yeah, and I totally agree. I think, just to show like the respect that they had for each other, there was I'm quoting Kobe Bryant so much today, but Kobe Bryant said like a few months ago, actually, before he passed, God bless his family and everything, but I remember he said that the Lakers could have won 10 championships in a row if it wasn't for the Spurs being in their path. And that just shows the respect for the Spurs that he had. And I'm pretty sure the Spurs could have won, I wouldn't put 10 up there because they weren't as good as the Lakers, but I would say like maybe 8 if the Lakers weren't in the way. So yeah, I totally agree with you. I think the championship all those years was always in the Western Conference Finals, Lakers and the Spurs, because whoever won that was probably going to win the chip. And history shows that
interesting. It's interesting because if you go back and you look, like, the Eastern Conference, like, if I had to guess, given that the Lakers won 5, it seems like, okay, let me rephrase that. It is a fact. The Western Conference won more championships in those 10 years than the Eastern Conference. And it's not close because the Lakers won 5. The Spurs, I think, won 2.
They won in the early 2000s?
Between 2000, if you count 99, of course, we can count 99.
They won.
But the point is that, like, it was mostly the Lakers and the Spurs. They won most of the championships.
If you count from 2000, then they won 3. If you add in 99, then they won 4. And then their 5th championship was 2014 when they whooped on the Heat.
Yeah. which was nice. That was nice.
Which was nice. Praise the Lord.
Yeah. No, I say that because I was never a fan of the big 3 in Miami with LeBron and Ray Allen. And I was never a fan of Ray Allen. I couldn't. Ray Allen for me, like, people love Steph Curry, and I have nothing against Steph Curry. I think he's a good player. I think he did change the game a lot. But if you ask me, hey, there's a gun to your head, you need someone to make this shot in a high-pressure – there's obviously a high-pressure situation because they miss, I'm going to die. Who do you want to give the ball to, Ray Allen or Steph Curry? I'm going to give 2 basketballs to Ray Allen.
Oh, my goodness.
Curry, you go wait outside. because Ray Allen is a completely different beast than Steph Curry. Steph Curry is good, but Ray Allen is like a shark who dresses up as a human and goes around and just kills people in cold blood. He was insane.
I think you're crazy.
To
I
think
you're
Ray
crazy
Allen
for
over
saying
Steph
that.
Curry?
I get that Ray Allen makes some daggers, and I've probably seen his worst dagger of them all when he beat the Spurs in 2013.
I was say, don't be biased now. Don't be biased now just because he beat the Spurs.
But I don't know, man. If I had to put the ball into either hands of Steph or Ray Allen, I would go with the greatest of all time, which is Steph. He's the greatest shooter, hands down, of all time. And remember, you're not, at least you didn't clarify that like this is a final shot. All you said is that they have to make a shot. And I added that detail specifically because if it's just make a shot, I would say Steph Curry, hands down. He can make it from like across the world. But if it's like it's the finals and it's the Golden State Warriors have lost their 3-1 lead, and do you want Steph Curry to shoot or do you want Ray Allen? I'd say Ray Allen, just because I trust him more in that high pressure. But overall, and I know you're saying the guns to my head, that's a high pressure situation, but
I'm glad you don't think me being about to die is a high pressure situation.
I don't know. I just I think it's debatable. I'd say that.
Well, it seems like you just debated yourself and you lost. That's what it seems like, because you like started off saying it's Steph Curry, and then you ended by saying Ray Allen is the better clutch shooter. And like, to me, I never understood people who said that, because people were like, oh, Steph Curry is the best shooter in the history of the game. And I was like, well, then why doesn't he ever come through in the clutch? And then they're like, oh, well, Ray Allen's a great clutch shooter, but Steph Curry's a better shooter. And I'm like, how can you be a great shooter not in the that's like saying, oh, I made a shot, I make all the 3-pointers I shoot in my driveway. Like, okay, but it needs to translate up to the next level. Steph Curry can kill it in the regular season,
sure.
And I completely agree with that. But the difference between Steph Curry and Ray Allen, to me, is not, of course, if you want to talk about just shooting, then okay. But first of all, just with shooting, Ray Allen consistently would come through in the clutch more often than I can remember Steph Curry doing. Because if anything, Steph Curry has developed, as far as I'm aware, a reputation for not doing that. And Ray Allen clearly did not have that reputation. Ray Allen was the guy who would miss like all the 3-pointers he shot in one game, and then like with the game on the line, he would drain it. So it was like there was something different about him in clutch situations. But the other thing about Ray Allen, this was the real reason I hated him, was that Ray Allen was like a different kind of beast in that he would shoot the lights out, and then he would come back down and he would lock up your best shooter.
Okay.
Steph Curry can't guard a fire hydrant. Like Ray Allen would, like Kobe Bryant would come down and Ray Allen would be like, I just drained a 3 in your face. And Kobe would come down and Ray Allen would be all over him and he'd be fouling him and pushing him and the refs don't call it. And I'd be so mad. So that's why I hated him, because not only could he shoot, but then he would come and he would lock up whoever he was guarding. And it was just like, that to me was the part that made him so frustrating, because he was like Bruce Bowen back in the day. But he could also shoot. Bruce Bowen would lock you down, but like Ray Allen could shoot and he could lock people down.
See, but the thing is, in your scenario, it didn't include defense. So in your scenario, like, it has nothing to do with defense. It's with shooting a shot. So defense is irrelevant. I don't care what you say. You do not need defense to shoot a shot. And if you want to include defense, well, then it's a new scenario. And I'd probably change my pick. But
you don't sound like you support Steph Curry in this. You keep adding all these qualifiers and all these things.
It's just because there's this thing called the eyeball test. And when you see Steph, and I'm sure you understand this, when you see him going off, he's not human. It just does not make sense. And so, like, yeah, like, once again, I guess when I really think about it, if there was a gun to my head, in between my tears of crying and choking, I'd probably say, yeah, please Ray Allen, shoot for me. I guess I would say that. I would. But I think to have the title of like the best shooter, it's not just in the clutch. I think it's the whole body, like the whole embodiment of shooting. But then again, you know, if you want to have who's the best QB conversation all the time, you could say, well, Peyton Manning was a beast in the regular season, but did he come through in the clutch in the playoffs like Tom Brady? So it's, yeah, I'll just pause there.
So you think so what I'm hearing is you think Tom Brady is better than Peyton Manning, just like you think Ray Allen is better than Steph Curry. I'm glad we can agree on that. Let's continue. I didn't say anything. You just talked yourself into both of those points.
No, I know exactly what I said, and I stand by
it. Okay. So then so best shooter, let's just be more general. If you have to pick the greatest player from the year 2000 to now, because obviously we could talk about Michael Jordan, and that would be like a whole different conversation. But I think for you and I, we weren't, like, you were very young when Michael Jordan was popping off, and I was like fresh out of the womb. So it's not really a fair comparison. So I think it's easier for us to just talk about like stuff that we were around for. So Michael Jordan can exist outside of this conversation for now. Mm-hmm. But if you have to pick the greatest player that you ever watched, that you ever we can do you want to do like a list, or do you want to just pick one guy?
I like the controversy of just picking one guy.
Okay, then just pick one guy. Just pick one guy.
From the year 2000 forward?
Yeah, so if you want to include 1999, the lockout season, it's a big asterisk next to it, then you can. But 2000 onward.
I think we would all agree it comes down to two people. The Black Mamba.
Okay.
And King James.
Can I pause you there for a second?
Sure.
I want to ask a question, because this is just something that I had been thinking about in preparation for this conversation. Why is it, and maybe you have a reason, maybe you're just going to say, I know, I never thought about it. I don't know. But I want to see what you say. Why is it that Kevin Durant is not in those conversations? And what would he have to do to get there? Because I agree with, first for the record, like I agree with you that it's between Kobe and LeBron, and as a Lakers fan, and just as someone who was watching the NBA when Kobe was still young, I'm going to go with Kobe, just like many other people and ex-players have done. But it's curious because people talk about how great Kevin Durant is, and they talk about how amazing Kevin Durant is. And people even say that people make the argument that Kevin Durant, before the ACL, he was the best player in the league. And that was when LeBron was still in the league, right? So the question becomes, why is it that Kevin Durant doesn't get included? Why don't you include him in that conversation?
I think because what separates LeBron James and Kobe from him is they have both proven to be the individual that carries a team to the championship and wins the championship because of them. Kevin Durant, yes, was the best player on the Golden State team. I don't think that's really debatable, but that is the same team who won 73 wins before.
Yeah, like 73.
Yeah. So it's just like, yeah, he was the best player on that team, and he did get the MVP, and he did win a championship, but it's like he's a cheat code for them. Like, it just made it unfair. But if you think of Kobe, he had to grind and maul against the Celtics, and that's after Shaq left. And I remember it went up to Game 7, if I remember correctly, with Kobe Bryant. Yeah, it was a battle, and he had the team on his back. It doesn't mean that there weren't other good players. I don't want to make it seem like you got to be the only good player on your team, and like thus you're now in the conversation, because I would say LeBron James as well, when he was with Cleveland or with the Heat, he was the best player on both teams, but he had a supporting cast. But I think what carries LeBron James into the conversation is his championship with the Cavs, and with Kobe, that championship against the Celtics. And Kevin Durant just doesn't have that yet. Is he capable? I would want to believe yes. I'm optimistic about him. I think he's a great player, but he hasn't shown it. So that's why I think he's out of the conversation. He's like tier 2. So he's right there. It's just he's not between those two.
Okay. So I have another Kevin Durant question, but I'll save that for later. So, okay, but you said Kobe and LeBron. So which one do you take?
I guess to debate you, I'd say LeBron.
Okay, just to debate.
I could argue both ways.
Okay.
But I would say LeBron's the best player of this generation.
I mean, I think for me, the reason that I don't take LeBron, I'd say Kobe instead, is because like I think the best argument for it is like what you were saying is the eye test. Because if you remember Kobe, like the sad part is that Kobe in his like solo prime, I don't know if that makes sense. Like when he was the best
Without Shaq.
yeah, when he was at his best as far as being like an individual player. Like by the time like 2008, 2009, 2010, by the time that rolls around, Kobe is becoming like a floor general, and he's calling the shots and he's setting people up and he's playing around his strengths and weaknesses that his team has. But in like the earlier years, like 04 through 07, when Kobe is just, I'm going to score all the points, I'm going to make all the plays by myself. That version of Kobe Bryant was just insane. I try to say insanity and insane at the same time. It was insanity to watch because you would watch him and you would see him do things and you would say like, what is happening? It's like everyone is playing one game and Kobe would just be playing like a completely different game, and you would see him doing things and you would think to yourself like, this is impossible. There's no way. And the reason that I don't give LeBron as much credit, and this is just like a personal thing, there are other arguments you can make, and I'm not going to pretend to have like all of the stats to like measure like side by side. But to me, the thing that really is like, it's hard for me to say like, how can you put LeBron and Kobe in the same conversation? The Lakers went to the championship 3 years in a row. They went in 2008, they went in 2009, they went in 2010. That was when Kobe and LeBron were like really, really, like they had those commercials together with the little puppets, like the playoff, the postseason, get excited, Kobe. Like all those little things. Like you remember that? They had all that stuff because what they were doing was it was going to be Kobe and it was going to be LeBron. And there were going to be these epic battles and it was going to be so great. And what happened 3 years in a row? Kobe showed up. Kobe came to the restaurant all dressed up real nice to meet his date, and his date wasn't there. 3 years in a row, LeBron, it was because it was the Celtics in 08, it was the Magic in 09, and it was the Celtics again in 2010. And then in 2011, LeBron goes where? LeBron goes to Miami. Now, of course, you can say what you want. In 2011, the Mavericks destroyed the Lakers. You can say what you want about that. But the point I'm trying to make is that people talk about like having to carry a team, and like you have to show that if you're not there, this doesn't happen. You have that's what you were saying. That's why Kevin Durant is not in the conversation, because he hasn't proven that. Kobe proved it, that he was the floor general, he was the alpha, he was the captain, he was the one who made it all happen. He proved it in between 2008 and 2010. And that to me was LeBron's window to do the same thing. And he never did it. And then, of course, he had the run with the Heat. But by that time, then you make the argument that, is he essential to that team? Is he, like, if he's not there, do they lose all those championships? Do you get what I'm saying? Like, to me, it left a bad taste in my mouth because I was so hyped for those Kobe versus LeBron finals, and I was so excited for them. And then we never got them. And then LeBron went to Miami, and then it was never the same. And it's just like now suddenly, LeBron is the greatest, and he was so good. And even in the early to mid 2000s, he was better than Kobe Bryant. And I'm like, what do you mean he was better? He was never even there.
I would say this. I hear you, but the same argument could be used if you just swap them out. And what I mean by this is when Kobe Bryant was doing his thing in 2008, 2009, 2010, I think we could both agree that LeBron James had a trash team. He had a trash team, and he was just the fact that they were even projected to go to the finals is a testament to his greatness. And that's because he still wasn't even a champion. He was just throwing it down in the East. Now, I think it's fair if you would put LeBron on that 2008, 2009, 2010 LA team, and you put Kobe on that Cavs team, would Kobe have been able to carry them to the championship and win? I would say, I don't know. Obviously, it's hypothetical, but I would say if LeBron was on that Lakers, I think they would win. I still think they would. And you know, oftentimes I hear people compare Kobe Bryant's first years with LeBron's. Who did LeBron have? He didn't have no one his first years. And if you put LeBron with
Zydrunas Ilgauskas.
Exactly, some dude that, you know, no one even knows about. If you put LeBron on that early team with Shaq, I could only imagine the chaos that they would be doing together. So if you put LeBron James in the steps that Kobe Bryant took, and if you put Kobe Bryant in the steps that LeBron James took, I think they would still win championships. I think they would still be successful. But when I look at both of them, what separates them for me is that, yeah, you can argue that when it comes to that killer mentality that we hear a lot, that the Mamba instinct, clearly Kobe Bryant has that it, but LeBron James just has more to the package. He consistently grows. He elevates his team. He went to the finals 8 straight times. Yes, I know, in the Eastern Conference, which was weak sauce. But the point is that we still forget those people get paid to play too, and they're at the highest level. So I think LeBron James overall was the better player, is the better player. But if there was a gun to my head and I needed a basket, I would probably ask Kobe to shoot it.
I'm enjoying this because I make a point and then you make your point, and by the time you're done making your point, you're also making my point. So this is going well for me.
It's because I try to be objective in the sense I acknowledge both strengths. Like, I'm not going to put blinders on willfully just to make my point.
I will. Kobe Bryant is not.
I acknowledge Kobe's the more clutch player, but I don't think the clutch gene is the only thing that you look for when you're looking at the best player or to build a team around someone.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I think, actually, ironically, just to talk real quick about what you were saying, I think if you put LeBron in the Western Conference, like if you switch him and Kobe, you put Kobe with the Cavs, you put LeBron with the Lakers starting in like 2008, right? Because they got Gasol like mid 2008. Yeah. So if you put LeBron with that team, I actually don't think the Lakers go to the finals. I don't think they do.
Okay, hold up. Let me edit your scenario. Kobe Bryant was already a champion, correct?
Yeah.
He was seasoned, prime Kobe.
Yeah.
So let's put prime LeBron who has won a championship in that Lakers squad now.
I still don't think he wins.
You're right.
Dude, no, because I think you forget how stacked the Western Conference was. You have prime Melo.
Yeah.
Trevor, you have prime Melo with the Nuggets, and you have, it's not just Melo, it's Melo with prime, you can argue whether or not he was past his prime, but Chauncey Billups is there. You have like Kenyon Martin and Birdman and these crazy people. So you have Melo with like his goon squad to back him up, and then you have Chauncey Billups, who's like the seasoned general on the court. But then you have the Rockets, you have the Suns. Like, I don't think LeBron can get past all of and let's not even forget the Spurs. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like prime LeBron,
I think
ironically, I don't think prime LeBron ever played against that level of opposition in a conference. Like the thing is that now, of course, LeBron is in the Western Conference, and the Western Conference is extremely stacked. But LeBron is past his prime. So
I think LeBron played against better competition in the Golden State Warriors, who I would say would whoop on any of those teams if they played them. And LeBron James dominated against the Golden State Warriors. And LeBron James carried the Cavs, who shouldn't even been in the conversation with Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, the greatest backcourt of all time. So I hear you, but at the same time, if LeBron James beat the team with the greatest record of all time and he carried them by himself, I'm pretty sure he could.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying.
He could hold his ground.
I get what you're saying. I think the problem, and this is how conversations like this always break down, is when you start having to compare like present NBA or like past couple of years of the NBA to like the mid to late 2000s, you just run into the fact that the league itself is completely different.
It's
like,
changed.
Teams just do things differently. The rules are different. People get away with more. Like, I think there's a reason. Like, if you put James Harden in the, like, take James Harden as he is now and go put him and have him like match up with Ray Allen in the 2008 Boston Celtics. What do you think Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen would do to James Harden and the Houston Rockets?
They'd beat on him.
It would James Harden, you know how he has like that weak mental game where he seemingly James Harden would just give up. I'm retiring. I'm going to go play baseball like Michael Jordan. I'm done. Because there's like the league was just different back then.
13,
You talked about the 2010 series with the Lakers and the Celtics. If you go back and you watch that Game 7, the final score was so low. It was a defensive struggle. Like there was so little offense in that game, and people go back and they rewatch it and they say, "Oh, Kobe had a horrible stat line. He got carried." And it's like, did you watch? Nobody was scoring in that game. That game was just a mess. It was such a low scoring thing, and that's because the game itself was just different. There was a lot more physicality. It was a lot heavier, and LeBron, he existed in both times.
Both eras,
he could function in both. So, but like the thing with the Golden State Warriors, the reason I kind of like hesitate at that comparison of like, oh, the Golden State Warriors would trash all those teams. I was like, well, it depends. Did those teams hop in their time machine and come to the present? Or do the Warriors hop in their time machine and go back to the past? Because I think if the Warriors are the ones who go back to the past, I don't think they do so well. Because in a 7-game series, I think Steph and Clay, they're going to get worn down by getting like bodied by Bruce Bowen and Manu Ginobili and Tim Duncan every time they come inside. Like, I don't think it's going to go the way that they draw it up.
Yeah, I think, and that's what just makes this fun. It's the whole what if.
Yeah.
And I think it just depends on, what time period they go into. But I think any time period, Steph will be able to make shots from that court.
Yeah, because I think he's going to drain them. 50 feet away from the basket.
He's going to drain
He's
them.
open, so he can shoot it. Yeah. But he better just hope that freaking like Rajon Rondo doesn't come get his giant mitts on him, and then who knows what will happen.
That's true.
Because Prime Rondo was scary too. Prime Rondo was just like you never knew what you were going to get from him. He would like drain a half-court shot, and then he would like airball a layup in the same game. And you'd be like, "What's happening?" But he was. They were all scary. But I was just thinking about that year that the Cavs got to the finals, and it was just like every game. It was like on the one hand you have the other team, and then here we have the starting lineup for the Cleveland Lebrons at point guard, LeBron James. Starting at shooting guard, we have LeBron James. And he just did everything. And then he gets to the finals, and J.R. Smith forgets the score and runs away. And LeBron is on national television, flailing his arms and pointing. And it was so funny because you watch it back and you have like the perfect picture of LeBron, like, just like, what are you doing? And JR is like,
I know.
My bad, dude. Like, that was. If I had been LeBron, I would have cried. I would have been so mad.
Yeah, man. It was a crazy time period, and that's why I feel empathy for LeBron because that guy didn't get no breaks, but I think he's one of the best.
Did you ever have a J.R. Smith moment? Did you ever have a moment in sports where you like messed up horribly and you were just like, oh no, what have I done?
I don't think so. I might have. You would have to ask teammates of mine, but from my knowledge, I haven't. But I could be suppressing a memory where it was bad and I just don't remember.
Okay, I know I had a J.R. Well, not quite as bad as J.R. Smith, but like I had a moment where like I messed up really bad. But it was when I was in high school. We played flag football because, of course, Avondale School, they didn't want us to be tackling and getting hurt. And of course, we couldn't afford the freaking gear for tackle football. That was another reason. So we're playing, and I remember we kicked off. And I was only like on special teams, which is a nice way of saying I wasn't playing because there's not really special teams in flag football. So I was on the kickoff team, and they kick off, and the ball goes. And I had a decent like understanding of the game. Like I could run good routes. I could like pick people up, but like I just wasn't coordinated. So like someone would run at me and I wouldn't be able to pull the flag, or the ball would come at me, I wouldn't be able to catch it. So like I knew what was happening, but like my body couldn't do what I needed it to do. So what happened was we kick off, and I see it, like I'm running and I see what's happening, and immediately I'm like, okay, so our whole whatever coverage squad is running, and they're setting up the return, but this dude's just going to cut back, and we're all going to be on one side of the field, and he's just going to cut it back, and it's going to be like the play you described. There's going to be nothing but green in front of him. He's going to take off. He's going to score. So I saw it coming, and I was like, okay, I'm going to cut this dude off. So everyone was running to the left-hand side of the field, and I'm like zigzagging across, cutting to the right-hand side because I already saw what was going to happen. And sure enough, the guy cuts back, and he's coming. But like I said, I was not physically able to do what my brain told me to do. I was like, okay, I'm going to run. I'm going to cut this dude off. He's going to come around. I'm going to pull his flag. but he was way faster than I was. So he's running, and I'm like, I'm not going to catch this guy. So I was thinking as I was running, I was like, okay, what if I just dive at him? If I miss, no one can say I didn't try because I don't.
Don't tell me you popped the poor guy.
No, I didn't tackle him. That's a different story. I'll tell that story after this. So I didn't dive, but I didn't hit him. But I was like, I'm gonna dive, and if I miss, if someone gets mad at me, I'll be like, dude, I dove. What do you want me to do? And if I get him, I'll look like a freaking hero. Well, I didn't get him. I missed horribly, and the dude returned it for a touchdown. And I come back to the bench, and my whole team is yelling at me, like, what's your problem? And I yelled back at them, and they all shut up after. Like, what do you want me to do? I like threw myself at the ground trying to grab him. I was the only person there. Everyone else went the wrong way. Like, what do you want me to do? And everyone was like, oh, that's true. He did die. I was like,
awesome.
In my heart, I was like, whew, because I knew I was like, there was no way I was ever going to get him. And if I hadn't dove, I would have looked like a massive scrub. Like, I look like a scrub either way. But at least this way, no one can say I didn't try.
That kind of reminds me of my cousin David when we would play football back then. There at my grandma's, he would usually pick me on his team, and he told me, Matt, if you're gonna get burned, make sure you fake a injury. So if you get burned and if they score, just be like and then everyone's gonna know like, oh, it's because he's hurt. That's why he got burned. So anyway, yeah, that just comes to mind.
So did he ever do that? Like, did you ever catch him doing it?
I caught him and I caught myself doing it plenty of times.
Well, I don't remember you ever doing that to me. So I don't know. Maybe I've never burned you, or you've never remembered to do that after I've burned you.
Yeah, I probably just don't remember it. I did it a lot growing up just because I didn't want to get embarrassed. Now I've learned to just own it.
No, I remember this is funny. I was an undergrad and we had flag football at intramurals in Southern, and we were playing, and I remember we came to the field and we're getting warmed up and we're getting our flags on and everything. And I see the dean of the School of Religion on the sideline. And I was like, okay, Dr. King is here. That's interesting. And then he starts putting flags on. And I was like, is he? Dr. King, the dean of my department, was the quarterback for the opposing team.
Oh, wow.
So I'm getting like styled on by the dean of my department. He's calling out the plays. He's like making reads at the line. He's going. And I still remember because it happened like right in front of me. So
Sure.
He calls the play. They're at the goal line. They're driving. So we're pushed up into our own end zone. We're there. And he snaps the ball. And he like looks and he doesn't get the look he's wanting. So he starts rolling out to his left. And he sees that the pylon is uncovered. He's like, I'm just going to go for it. So he's scrambling for the touchdown. And
what position are you?
I don't know. I was
like a linebacker or something?
Like linebacker or something.
Okay,
Because I wasn't fast enough to like keep up with the receivers. But I was smart enough to read the field and just play linebacker and make the flag pulls as they went by.
So you both.
So I'm tracking with this guy. Like I was, okay, he's moving. I'm moving too. So I'm going. And now he's thinking the person I have to beat is Jerome. And I was like, I'm not going to tackle Dr. King. Like this is the dean of my department. So I reach for him and I'm very hesitant because it's like, I don't want to hurt this man. He's the dean. So I'm reaching. I was thinking he'll just like, okay, he'll see that I have the angle. I have him beat. I'll pull the flag. He'll be out at like the 1 yard line. He throws himself like he's Cam Newton, just throws himself at the goal line. And like, I'm there. And I was like, I'm not going to get tackled by this man. So I like get out of the way and I try to make the pull as he goes by. I miss. He lands on like his shoulder and like rolls in. It's like, yeah, touchdown. Woo. And we lost the game to Dr. King, to the dean of the department. That's like the dean of the school coming and playing a football game and beating you. And then he had his class the next day, and he's in a freaking sling. He's like, yeah, I messed up my arm. And I was just there like, I know what he did. And he's not admitting what he did. He's not telling the class, yeah, I thought I was a college kid. It turns out I'm an old man. Like, he didn't want to admit it. But he just, like, flung himself to the ground, messed himself up, and then he had to go to work the next day and just be there. And all of us who played, we're all fine, right? We're all just chilling. And he's there, like, injured. And I was thinking, man, I hope it was worth it for him to score the touchdown.
That's an awesome story, man.
No, it was
I don't
crazy.
think I've hurt anyone, or like I don't think I've hurt myself, but I have made some dumb decisions. You can remember it when playing basketball in the church gym, and I like straight up trucked Sean for no reason. Yeah, there's times where like
tell the story though for the sake of people who don't know it. Because I don't, to be clear, I don't fully remember what. I just remember hearing the impact, everyone going, "Oh," and then you pulling Allen Iverson and stepping over him, and everyone like going crazy. That's all I remember.
We have this friend Sean. He's a good guy, real cool guy. We were playing basketball, and when I play basketball, I'm trying to get away from this, but it's easy for me to get competitive. And at this point, I don't remember if I was on fire or I don't remember if I was trying to catch on fire. The point is I was motivated just to get going. And the ball comes to me. I catch it in the low post. Sean's on me. He's a little taller than me. And I had an easy basket. I could have just turned and scored. He wasn't playing tight defense, but for some reason, something got into me where it wasn't enough just to score. I needed to drop my shoulder into the guy, pick him up with my shoulder, drop him to the floor, score the ball. And I did that. But then that wasn't enough either. There was something in me that said, you need to do more. And while he's on the ground, shocked, and I got to add in, he's like 4 or 5 years younger than me.
That changes the story significantly.
He's on the ground looking at me, and I just step over him like Allen Iverson, and I give him that mean mug look, and I run down the court. And my girlfriend, who's my wife now, told me, like, what's wrong with you? You're just a kid. You straight up mauled him down there in the bottom of the basket and then walked over him. So, yeah, man. You know, sometimes funny. You just forget who you are.
To have that perspective. It's funny to have that perspective of, like, you do something and you think it's awesome, and then, like, the girl that you like is like, what on earth is wrong with you? And you're just there like, what's wrong with me? I thought that was good. I thought you would like that. And she's like, no, I find that unattractive. And you're just like, oh.
Exactly.
That's funny. You know, for me, I remember I was never like the most physical guy, but I like to talk. I like to talk trash because, like, we grew up, we would always be like chirping. We'd always be saying stuff. We'd always be messing with each other. That's just how we always were. But when I went to Southern, people weren't like that at Southern. Like, I would go to Southern and I would talk with people the way I would normally talk, and they would get offended. Or someone would come to me and they would tell me about something that happened, and I would make a statement about it, not trying to be funny. And they'd be like, you're hilarious. And I'd be like, I wasn't joking. I think that you're the dumbest. Like, why would you, like, so that I would get very confused because I wouldn't be able to tell, like, when I was trying to joke, people would get offended. And then when I was being serious, people would laugh. So it was very awkward. So needless to say, that didn't translate well to sports because I would go and we're playing soccer and people were like really, really serious. Like, people were playing as if they were going to die if they lost. But for me, like, I was not that good at soccer. I'm just having fun. So I'm like talking during the game, like someone shoots the ball and misses wildly. I'm like, hey, where are you going? Like, what you aiming at? Or like if my friend passes me the ball and like he misses the pass and like passes it to someone on the sideline, be like, she's not playing. I'm on your team. Like, just little stuff like that. They're just joking around because something funny comes to my mind. I'm going to say it. So we were losing like 1 or 2-0. It was not a close game. We were not a good team, but I'm still talking just because I'm having fun. So I'm talking to the ref. I'm talking to my teammate. I'm talking to the guy who ran past me. And at one point, the guy like, dude, shut up. You're losing. And I was like, yeah. Why are you still talking if you're losing? I was like, I'm having fun, bro. Why does it seem like I'm having more fun than you and you're winning? And he got like really, really mad. And the problem is that, like, because he got mad, like, he got mad at me and my teammates saw that he got mad at me. So like the game started getting really chippy and people started like pushing and stuff. And I felt real bad because I was like, I hope that wasn't my fault. But at the same time, I feel like I contributed to that.
That was your fault.
Maybe it was. I mean, I was just having fun. Like,
you're just having fun, man.
People don't know how to relax.
And if people throw punches because you're having fun, well, you're having fun.
Okay, at least I didn't skip straight to the physical violence against someone 5 years younger than me. Like, come on now. It's not the same.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, man. But I think the funny thing is that, like, for us, you and I specifically, we have like a lot of sports related memories and like physical activity related memories. One of the first things that I remember us doing together was actually going out and like going camping when we were you were like 19, I was like 16,
Mhm.
and we went out and we would like go tubing every day. And then I think it was that same summer, we had VBS, and if I remember correctly, the I don't remember what the theme was specifically, but like the people who were in charge of the physical activities all like dressed up as lifeguards. So like
Oh yeah.
I remember being super jealous because I was something else. I don't remember what I was, but you guys all came with like the paint on your faces and like the red shirts and everything. And I was like, man, that's so cool. So like I would go outside and hang out with you guys and just to be like part of what y'all were doing out there. And those are like some of my earliest memories of us hanging out and doing stuff. Is just like stuff outdoors and things like that. I don't know if you remember anything else specifically.
I remember being at that camp, the one that you referenced earlier, and going down in a van that was overcrowded with a bunch of people, and it was just ridiculous how
Yeah.
many people fit in the van. There was a trailer attached to the back, and me and your brother are hanging up on top of it. Mr. Halder's driving it, and me and your brother felt like we're gonna die. We're gonna fly off the van. He would be churning a little fast,
Yeah.
and then you could share the story of the highway patrol.
No, it was just ridiculous because like you look back and it's like if we were in the same position now, would we do that? Absolutely not. But,
Absolutely
like,
not. Yeah.
we were freaking crazy, and Mr. Halder like encouraged our craziness, which I mean, all's well that ends well, right? So it's okay.
Sure.
But like the state trooper guy came and was like pulling us over and telling us that you know what's funny is like when I used to retell this story when I was younger, I would like vilify the state trooper. Like, what was wrong with that guy? He was so dumb. Like, why would he? But like, I look back on it now, and I'm like,
It wasn't him.
you know, it kind of makes sense that he pulled us over because that's freaking dangerous. Because yeah, he like pulled us over. He's like, you guys can't do that, and we all were like, why? And he didn't know how to say it because he was like, because you'll die. So like he tried to come up with like a logical reason, like, well, because
This
you
is
know,
a state
this
highway.
is technically a state highway, and all of us were like roasting him like to his face, like this is a state highway. So can we go 80 on this road? Is that what you're saying? And he was just there looking at us like he didn't know what to say. He's like, if you guys have no self-preservation instinct. Do you hear that?
I do. It's the state trooper.
Stop, Google. Okay, Google. Stop. I don't even know what it was saying.
It was a state trooper, man.
The state troopers. I'll teach him. I remember. No, I mean, at the end of the day, it was just funny because we got pulled over and the dude was like telling us off, and we were all like real mad at him because we're kids, right? So we're mad that our fun is being interrupted. But at the same time, I just look back and I'm like, that was so dumb. Like, we shouldn't have done that. It was fun though. It was a lot of fun.
It was, man. I had a lot of fun back then with you, and just the memories, even having sword battles. I don't know if you remember that. With
Oh,
the
yeah,
shields,
dude,
the swords, playing dodgeball. There's just all types of memories. Being at school, playing basketball, like against random people there.
Yeah.
All that time was good stuff.
No, dude, it was fun.
Do you have any other questions about sports?
Do I have any other questions? I think one thing that I want to ask, and this is more like, I guess, how do I say? Like it kind of like, it's sort of related to sports, but like sort of not. So
Okay.
like for you, how important do you think, because you talked a lot about sports now, right? And like, not now, sports then, right? How you played sports back then and it was a big part of like what you guys did and all of that, and like how your family was connected and all these things. But like, how does that, so is that just like a part of your life that you put behind you now? Because like, I imagine you're not playing as much organized sports now when you're a grown man living with your wife, you're going to school. She's probably not going to go throw the football around with you in the backyard after
You'd be
work.
surprised.
I might be surprised.
You'd be
That's
surprised.
fair. And if she does, that's freaking cool.
I taught her how to throw the football.
Okay.
And I could probably say she could throw a spiral.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm surprised, and I'm not exaggerating. She could actually throw a spiral.
That's
so,
good.
When I was depressed, when I got up here and only like 2 people played football and they were always busy, I had to find a way to play football. So me and Selena would go to the park and I tell her, all right, Selena, throw me the ball. And I put on my gloves, I put on my cleats, And, she'd only throw like 3 feet. So I was doing little 3 feet, like 3-foot slants, and that's all I was doing. And it was fine. And I was catching like a dead turkey, just, falling in my hand. But in time that 3 feet route, it turned a 4 to 5 to 6. And that dead turkey ended up becoming a spiral. And she's gotten a lot better. And she's also gotten good at Frisbee. So we're actually a family that me and my wife, we both like sports. I'm a sport fan in not just playing but seeing sports. She's just she just likes playing sports. She doesn't like to see sports really. But yeah, I still play football and stuff like that. But when I have time and when I have people to play with,
No, yeah, I get
I would
you.
add that in.
Yeah. What are some other things that you guys do? Obviously, like, you don't have to be super personal, but like, what are some other things? Like, I know it's probably been, at this point, it's been what, almost a year? Over a year?
It's over a year already.
Yeah, over a year. So for now, I'm sure there's been habits that you've developed, or like routines that you've developed, just things that you guys do together. But I'm sure it's still a little bit weird to think back to like the habits and routines that you used to have as like a single man, now coming into your marriage relationship. Like, how much of what you do is different? How much of it is it the same? Like, talk to me a little bit about that.
I'd say a lot is different. A lot. Just, like sleeping in the same bed with someone when you're so used to being by yourself, that's different. Waking up, going to the kitchen and seeing, a person in there with you, that's different. Coming home and being aware that it's not just you living there, but it's someone else, that's different. I think there's more different than the same than when I was single. Even the way that we budget, the way that we plan, the way all this, my whole world has changed, but I would say for the better. Of course, there's some things that I wasn't used to that it took time, and everyone would admit, because we're human. But yeah,
No,
man,
Matthew, I don't know what you mean. I don't know what you mean. You're gonna have to explain.
I don't know what you mean.
I'm not sure what you're talking about. You want to explain that for me?
Can you tell the world for us what you mean? No, but yeah, man, it's been good. And the habits that I enjoy that we do now is, I would say, for some this might be small, but we enjoy eating together. I thought that was a normal thing, but apparently not. There's people who are not used to eating with each other, sitting down and having a meal with each other, praying with each other, talking to God with each other. Those are things that we do. And then just having weekly dates, that's something that I enjoy doing with her too, at least pertaining to a couple. Like, there's habits I have myself, and because I think habits are important, but your question was specifically about, with her. So those are.
Yeah. No, and I mean, I think that's one thing that's really important about marriage that people don't really realize until you get into it. And I say that not because I'm like some big expert, but I think
Sure.
you can attest just as much as I can. Even if you haven't been married that long and you don't know really all that much, the difference between being married and not being married is like so large in terms of your perspective. Like, the
Sure.
things that you think are important before you get married, and then like after you get married, it's almost like night and day. So it can be challenging because you come into it prepared to deal with like these problems, and then these things are not even problems, and then these are all like the actual things you have to deal with. It's different. And one of those things I think that I was not prepared to deal with was the concept of like, okay, there are things that we do together, and that's great. It's good that we do things together, but like, I cannot turn to my wife for everything. Like, if I'm sad, my wife has to make me happy. If I'm stressed, my wife has to calm me down. If I'm nervous, my wife has to comfort me. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, there are things that I have to be able to do things for myself. And like, when you're suddenly in an apartment or in a house and there's another person who's like always there, that can be challenging. So obviously you don't have to share anything that's like super personal, but like,
Sure.
What are some of the, because you're talking about like things that you do for yourself, like what are some of the things that you're talking about, and like how has that benefited you as you've grown, as you've become a more experienced husband, and of course just as you've become more of a man?
I want to touch on what you said, and this may not be what you're expecting, but this is what I'm like drawn
fine.
to.
That's
How to
fine.
answer in the sense that I think you're very right that when you become a husband or a wife, and there's a lot of expectations we have, and as you said, like we're thinking about like, okay, this is what I need to prepare for, this is what I need to plan for, and then once you become a husband and wife, like you realize, wow, that's the least, the way you said, you know what I mean, like there's bigger issues or whatever. One of the things that has helped me deal with the transition of being a husband, and also just, I would say, being a better human, is there was this series by this guy named Pastor Andy Stanley. I don't know if you've heard of him. And he basically shares this concept. I'm sure it's not his, he probably read about it, but it's this idea that every conflict is due to unmet expectations. And the point of that is when we enter a marriage, if we don't have an awareness for the expectations that we carry within ourselves and toward our spouse, it's going to lead to an unhappy union between two people. And that's one thing I've learned, that like the way you said, like when you're going to enter a marriage, you're thinking, okay, like I need to prepare for this, I need to prepare for that, I need to address this and that. But that's very self-centered. And when you become a husband, like for both of us, I'm pretty sure you've seen that, at least in my marriage, I've learned that I'm a lot more selfish than I think, and the world revolves around me a lot more than I think. And I've learned a lot about myself, and it's been humbling. But through that exercise of asking myself, like, why am I bothered by this? Why am I reacting because she answered this way, she didn't answer this way? Why am I whatever? Of having this awareness and realizing it's because I have these expectations of how a wife ought to be, or how my wife ought to respond, or how a husband should be. It's been super healthy for me, super humbling, and it made me realize that a lot of these expectations don't even come from the Bible. It comes from my culture, or from movies, or from my parents. And all those things are not in and of themselves evil, but we always have to remember that the places where we find influence, or that influence us, it's not always right or correct. So yeah, that's been helpful for me. I have no idea if that answers your question, but that's how I answered it.
I mean, it doesn't really answer like the main thrust of the question, but you bring up a very good point. I think that your statement about expectations is huge, because that's something for me that I had to learn, and I'm still learning, because I'm very poor at introspection. I'm very bad at like figuring out why I feel the way I feel. So you can take that a step further. I'm also very bad at figuring out why other people feel the way they feel. So that has been a real challenge for me in my marriage, because there are times when I will upset Esther, and then I will have to try and comprehend, like, why does she feel, like what expectation did I not meet, or like what is it that she needs from me that I'm not giving her. And then the same way, like I'll get upset, and Esther will say, and not in like a rude way, but in like a genuine, straightforward, like, what is the problem? And I have to, like, what is it, what expectation do I have that she did not meet, or what is it that I need from her that I did not get? So like you have to be able to think about the needs and wants of the other person as well as your own. You have to be able to be aware of those things, because every conflict is like some variance on that. Like there was something that was needed that was not supplied, or there was something that was wanted that was not given, and just stuff like that you have to be aware of. You have to figure out how to be in in unison with your partner, so that you know what she's thinking, you know what she's desiring. But what I was asking more specifically, because you were talking about like being like doing things for yourself, and I guess in some ways doing those things for yourself can help you get better attuned to like what it is that you're wanting or needing just in general. But regardless, what are some things that you do like just for yourself? What are some of the habits that you've formed over the course of like your young adult life, your manhood? You've come into this now. I'm sure there are a lot of things that you don't do that you used to, but like I'm sure there are some things that have stuck with you, or some things that you've picked up. What are some of the things that you do that keep you sane?
I'll touch on a few that come off the top of my head. As more come, I'll bring them up. But There's one that is basically this. I've learned, and it's a habit of mine, to only seek advice from people who have what I have. Let me say that. I only seek advice from individuals who have what I want. And let me unpack that. A few years ago, I was taught by a successful person in what they do. He said, Matt, I care for you and I'm happy for the way God's leading you in your life. And I want to share with you something that I learned really late in my life. And I want you to know from like a young age. I said, sure, what is it? And he said, only ask advice from people who have what you want. And he told me, if you want business advice, ask someone who's doing well in business. And, it just makes sense, but we don't always do that. If you want marriage advice, ask someone who has a good marriage. If you want to know about like your spiritual walk, ask someone who is experiencing that spiritual walk that you want. And when I thought about that, it really got me thinking. And his whole point was everyone's going to give you advice because they care for you. But just because someone cares for you and their intentions are right doesn't mean the information is right. And you need to be able to discern that. So for me, one of the habits that I've learned is I've learned to remind myself, and you're gonna basically hear me mention this, that a big habit I have is I'm trying to acquire is like a self-awareness of, one, acknowledging I don't have all the answers and being okay with that, and being willing to be taught by individuals or sources that have what I want, and to be able to discern what type of source is giving me certain information. Because I'm sure you have had people, oh, Jerome, you're a newlywed and this is advice I'd give you, but you're like, I don't want that marriage that you have. So like you respectfully hear it and you don't tell them, like, you could stop talking. I'm not really paying attention. Like, of course you're not going to say that, but like, you understand, like, I respectfully hear you, but I'm not just going to apply that in my life or assume that's true. So that's one that has helped me to understand that. Another one is a big one, and it's having a relationship with God. I've learned that you cannot be a loving, lovable person if you're not drinking from the fountain of God's grace daily. And I've seen a direct correlation. When me and Selena argue, when I get irritated easy, when I assume the worst, when I start playing God by assuming motives and judgments and intentions, it's the times where I'm not tasting his grace. And I've learned that just being in a marriage, it reveals a lot about yourself. And that's one of the habits I've learned to have. It's spend time with Jesus, because when I don't spend time with Jesus, I don't look like Jesus. And another one I would just throw in there real quick too is, and up front, people might think it doesn't really relate to a marriage or a happy life, but just being healthy, drinking water and getting sleep, exercising, all these things have helped me feel better about myself, be more confident, be more secure, think better, all these things, and it's affect me as well.
I mean, I think you've touched on a lot of good things. I would, just as a follow-up question, I would want to ask, what are some things that you would say, maybe, I mean, you can use yourself as an example, or you can
Sure.
just speak more in general if you like. What are some things that, on the other hand, are habits that people should drop more, or like maybe habits that you had to drop? Because of course, I think when it comes to habits that we have, there are some things that we do habitually that are good for us, that help us grow. But I think quite frequently, most of us, when we think of things that we do habitually, we're thinking of things that are not so good for us. So like, what are some experiences that you had with that, or maybe things that you've seen around you that you would feel confident saying, like, these are habits that a lot of us have that we need to drop? Like, for you personally, what do you think of when you think of that?
I think one we all struggle with is not being a good listener. I've struggled my whole life with when someone's talking, I'm thinking of the response that I'm going to give based off what they're saying, instead of just hearing them and being in the moment. That's one that I'm not going to claim I'm a master at. There's times where we're talking about our sports, I was thinking about how am I going to defend my point with what he's saying. She's not home yet.
Okay, so she didn't hear you. I was like, is he saying it because Selena's home, or like what happened?
No, getting some points right now. But
I know that I'm a terrible listener and that I have so much to learn. I'm not at all like my wife. She's much better than I am.
So, but yeah, man, that's a big one. It's like learning to listen. And as I mentioned earlier, like a lot of things I'm going to be saying, it happens up here. And because I think how you think affects how you act. And another one that I think people should drop, because that's what you asked me, like what are habits that I've kind of been trying to get away from that, people should be aware of too. It's not just that one, not listening, but it's also playing God. And by what I mean by that is kind of what I alluded to already. It's when you're talking with someone or you're in a relationship with anyone, we must know the boundaries that we're able to delve in and the other sides that we're not able to. And what I mean by that is we cannot read a person's mind. We cannot read a person's motive. And we don't know their heart. And the Bible is very clear on that. Only God does. And man, you'd be surprised when you really accept that and you start believing the best in people. And this is not just toward your wife, but toward your friends and toward your family. You realize a lot of these thoughts you have, they're fake, they're fictional, and you're making something that's not real a reality. And it's because you're playing God. You're assuming that you could, like attest to these things, what someone thinks and their motive and all these things. So for me, that's something that I've been working on, that instead of just assuming the worst, just believe the best. And does that make you vulnerable? Yeah, it does. And I think that's one of the things that this world lacks today. And I'll speak for myself. I'm real big on this, that you cannot experience the beauty of a relationship if you're not willing to be vulnerable. And I think a lot of us, we're scared to be vulnerable, if we're honest with ourselves, because we know the world could be ugly. We know people could be ugly. We know people could take advantage of us, but there's freedom when you're vulnerable and you're willing to believe the best about someone. There's freedom. And that's something that I strive to think. That's something that I try to apply in my life. Am I perfect at it? No, but that's my vision. And another one I would say people need to drop as well is I would say is talking about things that they don't know much about. On the flip side
what
of
did we
it,
just do, my friend? What did we just spend so much
I
time
know,
doing?
which is delete that whole tape, right? No, but there's a beauty in reading it, man. Like reading and learning about stuff before you just have a strong point. Like it's okay to have your opinions, and like we have the freedom of that. But if you're gonna have such a strong stance on something, it's like be willing to investigate it before you just jump to conclusion without even being able to say that you have tasted like the other side, or heard the other side. So that's something that I'd share.
For me, though, I will say it is a struggle to not just talk for the sake of talking, not just because I like to talk. I like to talk about things, whether or not I really know about them. I like to talk about them. So how do you break those habits? I mean, of course, there are other habits you mentioned, like learning not to play God. I struggle with that. Learning to be a good listener. I'm struggling with that. So to someone like me, how would you tell this person, how would you tell me to break those habits? What advice would you give?
Well, like what I would say, and just to clarify, I agree with everything you said. And I just want to clarify as well that just because you don't know much about something doesn't mean that you should, zip your mouth per se 100%. Like you can speak on it, but just make sure that you let it be known that I'm speaking from a point of view that hasn't really studied much. So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. So just to clarify that too. But if someone wants to improve their habit choices, like the actions we do, I think one of the first steps is to understand what it means to be a human. And I'm not trying to get all philosophical and stuff, but I think one of the best things first is like to understand something, it helps when you understand what you're working with. And as a human, to make it very simple, and all that I'm about to say it's coming from a book called Atomic Habits. It's a great book. I would recommend everyone to read. But in that book, it doesn't say this per se, but every single person is an embodiment of the choices they've made throughout their life. every choice it leads to forming habit patterns in your life, and your habit patterns start to create your character, and your character creates your lifestyle. And what we see right now in our lives, when someone's desiring change, they're not necessarily looking at habits, they're just looking at their lifestyle, where they're at in their life. They're like, I want change. But you have to understand that change starts at the lowest level, which is the choice. And habits don't just happen overnight, they happen choice after choice after choice. So I would just first tell someone to read up on that, and just to be aware of why you are the way you are. By the way, Selena got here, so I'm gonna go to the other room.
12 seconds later.
That's the first thing that I would say for someone to do, is to be aware of themselves. And there's not a lot to say on this video. I would encourage you to read that book. But the other thing is to understand, it's this principle that just because you have a desire or a goal to change a habit, like that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen. What separates you from the person that's successful isn't the desire. Like if someone wants to lose weight and one person loses weight, the other person doesn't, they both have the desire. So it's like, what's the difference? Mm-hmm. Or one person wants to be smarter and like read more, and the other person wants to as well, but only one actually reads books. It's like, what's the difference? It's not the desire. They both have the desire. And the way that the book talks about it says that it's your system in achieving that. That's where the problem lies. It's how you're going to reach the goal. And what I would tell someone is, if you want to change the way you think, if you want to change the way you if you want to be in shape, if you want to eat better, all these things, instead of focusing on the end goal, focus on the present, on this moment. Don't focus on the future, because the future is not even here. Like, you don't even know if you're going to be alive in a week or a month. And you're worrying about something that's unexpected, that you don't know what's going to happen. So I'd tell them, focus on today, focus on the little choices. And it's that little choice that you choose. That's what makes the big difference in the long haul, because it's the process that leads to the goal. It's not just desiring the goal. There's a process. And if you focus on that process every day, every moment, every step, you eventually get to that goal. And one day you're like, wow, I'm here. And it's because you were focusing every step of the way. And I would say this last thing is, it's okay if you fall and mess up. It's okay if both of us are saying, I don't want to play God. I don't want to try to read my wife's mind. I don't want to try to read my friend's mind who hasn't answered me. I don't want to. But then when we do it, it's okay, because we're human. And don't let your mistake and don't let your hiccup define you or stop you from advancing. And that's what separates a successful person from the person who's not successful, is when they fall or they stumble, they keep going, they keep grinding, because they know that stumble is not going to stop them from getting where they want to go. So I would share those 3 things.
Thanks for sharing, man. I appreciate it. And that's encouraging for me, because I think that breaking it down into like more manageable pieces of time, so like focusing on one day or focusing on one situation at a time, instead of looking at where I am now, looking at where I want to be and seeing how far apart that can be intimidating. So I think what you've shared is good. And I hope that everyone who's listening and everyone who watches is able to overcome the challenges they're facing by applying some of that advice as well. Actually, I wanted to invite you to do something. I know that there are a lot of friends of ours, friends of yours, who are going to watch this and hear this. I wanted to say, would you like to have the chance to pray for us who are here and who have heard this? Because I know that all of us, myself included, have things in our lives that we want to add and things in our lives that we want to subtract. And you've spoken about some ways to do both of those things. So would you also like to have the chance to pray for us to be able to do that?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, awesome.
All right, let's pray. Our Father in heaven, Lord, we want to thank you for the opportunity that we both had to talk over Zoom. We thank you, Lord, for the blessing of sports, as we talked about earlier, how it had a positive impact on our lives. And I'm sure a lot of people could attest, Lord, how it's not only a hobby they have, but it's been a blessing where they learn principles in their life on working together and not giving up. But at the same time, Lord, as we talked right now toward the end of our conversation about habits and choices and just wanting to be better people, Lord. I know Jerome and I and millions of other people, Lord, around the world are happy with how far we've come, but we're not content with where we're at. We want to grow, and we want to just become better people. And I pray, Lord, that you give us the hope, you give us the desire, you give us the motivation, but you also give us the strength to continue going forward, making positive choices. And even when we fall, which we will, because we're falling and we make mistakes, Lord, I pray that you just remind us in that moment when we fall to get back up and continue grinding and to lift each other up and to point each other forward, because it's a grind, Lord. It's a journey. It's a process, and it's a marathon. It's not a race. And let us have grace on each other and on ourselves, Lord, because we're not the final product. We are in the making of being a masterpiece. And help us remember that, Lord, and remind us that you work with people that you want to complete. And if you're working in our lives and you're transforming us, it's because you're going to finish what you begun. So thank you, Lord, for that good news. Remind us every day and give us that strength. In Jesus' name, amen.